Executive Function in the Classroom: Practical Strategies for Improving Performance and Enhancing Skills for All Students by Christopher Kaufman, Ph.D. Published 2010 by Paul H. Brooks Publishing Company. There are two strands for describing executive function issues: the metacognitive strand and the social-emotional regulation strand. The metacognitive strand describes the comprehension of information as well as the planning, initiation, maintenance of, and completion of tasks. As educators, we're aware of many of these subtopics: goal setting, planning, strategizing, sequencing tasks, the organization of materials, and time management are ones we frequently see in the classroom. Other topics may be more subtle and may not be recognizable as executive function dysfunction. These include task initiation, the beginning of a project or process, or task persistence, what sometimes is referred to as grit or perseverance. Executive or goal-directed attention is the ability to maintain focus on the task at hand. Students who get sidetracked by ambient noise or other sensory stimuli can have a difficult time re-engaging with their work. Self-monitoring refers to the quality of attention being given to certain tasks. Working memory describes how much information can be held in the brain simultaneously and will be discussed later. Finally, we have set shifting. This is the ability to move with relative ease between tasks or between the steps within a certain task. Children who are unable to do this become very routine or schedule or rule-bound and generally require considerable lead time and support to move on to other things before they consider themselves done. The second strand of executive function is social-emotional regulation. The first piece of this is impulse control, also known as response inhibition. This is the capacity to inhibit angry, destructive, or self-injurious responses to what's going on around you. This is a key factor in predicting the success in school as well as in life. Emotional control is how well someone copes with frustration or other strong emotion. As teachers, we've all seen kids who melt down or withdraw because something didn't go their way. Students with low emotional control can struggle in every aspect of their lives, both at home and at school. Finally, there's adaptability. Adaptability is the speed and ease that a person can transition within and between tasks. How easily a child adapts to change are markers of adaptability and may be considered markers of both academic and social success. Working memory is the part of the mind that holds bits of incoming information simultaneously, such as the ability to remember a series of spoken directions. A leaky working memory results in being unable to hold multiple pieces of information simultaneously, as new information may displace older information. This has an impact on the encoding and retrieval of information in long-term memory, as working memory serves as the essential bridge between short-term and long-term memory. Neurotypical individuals can hold 7 bits of information simultaneously in their working memory for 15 to 20 seconds. For individuals with impaired working memory, this may be a much smaller number, 3, 2, or even 1 bit of information. Giving students oral instructions in batches of 3 or more will not work. It's not that your student is intentionally ignoring your instructions. He or she may be neurologically incapable of retaining information due to a working memory issue. According to Kaufman, large working memory capacity allows for broadband cognitive bandwidth. This supports simultaneous processing of content and directions. Smaller working memory capacity contributes to narrow cognitive bandwidth and thus inhibits simultaneous processing. These students benefit from sequential or step-by-step instructions. Despite its very promising title, this chapter is not particularly helpful in knowing when and how a student is outside the fat part of the executive function bell curve. I would have appreciated some sort of table, or better, a continuum of developmental stages of executive function, particularly one that uses the same jargon as the book uses. It may merit using some of Kaufman's information in the work that AHB is doing toward developing an in-house social-emotional continuum. The major takeaway from this chapter is that parts of the prefrontal cortex that control executive function do not mature in most people until about the age of 20. This chapter, while of interest to special education teachers, diagnosticians, and students of neurobiology, is truly a case of too much information. It summarizes the locations and structures of parts of the human brain, but it fails to relate these structures in a user-friendly table or guide so a classroom teacher might easily access them and use them. This is a chapter that describes diagnostic assessment methods and contains useful tables of student behaviors that can be used by classroom teachers. The table can be used to determine which domain of executive function a student may have challenges in. I have created a Google Doc on the AHB Drive for faculty use. Strategy number 1. Provide a surrogate prefrontal lobe for the child. In writing, this might mean working one-on-one with the child in the planning, organizing, and sequencing of writing. For reading, this might mean monitoring and checking comprehension, including using verbal and nonverbal signals when the student goes off task. You also might use social mentoring for both academic and non-academic school settings. Finally, visual reminders and learning environment may help. Finally, visual reminders, things affixed to the student's work or the walls, may be helpful. Strategy number 2, teach new skills and content systematically and explicitly. Strategy number 3, demonstrate real-life applications. Strategy number 4, minimize demands on working memory. This may mean supplementing oral instructions which you give one at a time with clearly worded written instructions that divide the task into a series of discrete steps. It may also mean minimizing the amount of factual information that the children must hold in their working memory as they write down things. This may also include keeping a word wall or math facts wall in your classroom. Strategy number 5, provide lots of opportunity for guided practice. Strategy number 6, be consistent. Being as predictable as possible makes it much easier on the students with executive function issues in your classroom. Strategy number 7, anticipate frustration and manage challenges as they occur. Students with purposeful attention issues and other executive function dysfunction have difficulty because they cannot simultaneously hold more than a few bits of information in working memory at the same time. Decoding, fluency, and reading comprehension come more slowly to them, and automaticity may be aided by using some strategies. Here are some of these reading strategies. A systematic, multisensory phonics curriculum, such as Letterland or Jolly Phonics. Emphasis on common orthographic patterns, lettered patterns such as EE, EA, which both make the E sound, or OW, OU, which both make the OW sound. Left to right sound blending places less emphasis on working memory and more on letter sounds as they are blended together. For instance, with the word crisp, k, cur, cre, cris, crisp. Frequent opportunities for guided oral reading. Previewing of unfamiliar texts. Explicit cues before starting the reading process. Also, using a finger or other place marker to hold the place within the text as the child reads. Before your student with executive function dysfunction begins reading, it's important that you as the teacher set the stage. Having them access their prior knowledge is a form of thought gathering. This is an important part of teaching the child organizational skills and goal setting. Making a plan for reading comprehension, such as using a quill chart or a see, think, wonder routine would be very helpful. Having the child examine the book as part of a text survey to determine what the key elements in the organization of the text would also be very helpful. Here are some strategies that you can use with a child with executive function issues during the process of reading. Ask the child to visualize the imagery in the text he or she is reading by asking a series of very direct questions that use a series of cue words. What, how many, the size, the color, the shape, to help the child visualize or form a mental picture of what it is he or she is reading about. Teachers can monitor the child's understanding by asking a series of questions about the text. Students with executive function issues may not even realize that they have failed to comprehend what it is they're reading until they're required to demonstrate that they have done so. Teaching holding strategies to students with executive function dysfunction may be a useful tip as well. Having them use marginalia, sticky notes, or some other method of noting important parts of the text or parts of the text they do not understand will allow them to go back later and access them. Summarize it. Asking a child to summarize a piece of text that they have just read allows teachers to assess comprehension of the text. Reading response logs. Using either a formal or informal reading response log helps both student and teacher identify either problematic parts of the text or important ideas that you wish the child to remember. Role-playing helps determine comprehension, as well as helps explore more abstract concepts, such as point of view, when looking at texts. The simultaneous processing demands of writing are particularly challenging for students with executive function issues. The takeaway in this chapter is that students often end up planning to fail because they have failed to plan. Some strategies that you might use to help your children with executive function issues might be some of these. Try using graphic organizers, things that help them organize their thoughts on paper. You could also use a scribe, have somebody write down exactly what the child says as he or she says it. Sentence starters are a great way to get them started. Chunking an assignment, breaking it into smaller, more easily manageable pieces are better. Giving them extra time to complete an assignment is also helpful. Keyboarding over handwriting also helps some children. Project-based learning and a constructivist approach to math place greater demands on executive function skills than traditional math instruction. Children with weak executive function skills are likely to struggle more than peers with stronger self-directed cognitive capacities. Kaufman notes that researchers link math abilities to impulse control, working memory, and other executive function skills. Kaufman states that children with executive function issues require math instruction that is highly explicit, direct, and strategic. Here's some ideas for teaching math to kids with executive function issues. The first, scaffold strategy selection until the student becomes self-directed at strategic problem solving. Second, minimize the demands on working memory. This might be as simple as giving children access to a multiplication chart or a math facts wall. The second, minimize the number of algorithms you teach at a given time, and teach these algorithms both individually and methodically. You may even want to supplement the instruction by using templates or checklists. Strategy 1 for math instruction. Build number sense by working with number lines. Visuals are important. Strategy number 2, less is more. Teach only a few facts at a time. Use systematic curricula. Kaufman recommends the FAST math curriculum. This is the fluency and automaticity through systematic teaching with technology. A common misperception about students with executive function issues is that they are lazy or disobedient. Noncompliance on their part is not voluntary. They may be neurologically incapable of some of the tasks that their more neurotypical peers do quite easily. They require support and strategies. As part of AHB's Home Connection, here are some suggestions you could give to parents of children with executive function issues. Keep in mind they also apply to most neurotypical children as well. Have parents set up a dedicated workspace in their home, complete with supplies and the expectation that only schoolwork is to be done in this space. Parents should expect to provide a good bit of supervision and support as a child moves through their homework. Providing checklists or calendars, either parent-made or teacher-created, will be helpful to an executive function issued child. Also, teacher-provided rubrics with clear expectations are very, very helpful to children with these sorts of issues. Here's how it might look if you're talking about homework or projects in practice. Less is definitely more. Ratcheting down the amount of writing and bumping up reading and note-taking review may be helpful. Establishing routines are also very helpful. Using highly structured assignments where there's less chance for misunderstanding can be very helpful. Students with initiation issues often get bogged down when too many choices or open-ended choices are available. This chapter contains a great deal of information on project planning, note-taking, and time management. It includes helpful templates as well as tips that assist teachers in preparing students for the greater demands of high school and beyond. In general, suggestions to improve a student with executive function issues include limiting their choices, being as specific as possible about expectations, establishing firm routines, providing note-taking or project planning templates until these skills are acquired independently by the student, frequent requests for project updates and reminders about due dates for projects, and hard deadlines. Every teacher has met the child who blurts out an answer without raising his or her hand or says whatever comes to mind and causes hurt feelings with peers. This may be an executive function issue. Kaufman's book provides a number of strategies specific to social or emotional executive function issues and are too numerous to list here. The author provides a variety of methods in building the skills in students by creating a positive behavior support plan. The book provides a copy of a sample form and a detailed description of its use. The bottom line is that Christopher Kaufman's book, Executive Function in the Classroom, is a very useful text and would be a fabulous addition to the teacher resources at AHB Community School.